The governor of Nyandarua is one of those low-profile governors in the country. Indeed, I've noticed people often confuse him with the governor for Nakuru, Lee Kinyanjui, a totally different individual. Governor Kimemia, of course, opened a can of worms yesterday when he spoke on live television, the Citizen TV's morning show, about something called the deep state. Drama bin drama, ole drama, mto drama. Well, I'll tell you something which the Kumekucha deep state really hates. Oh yes, there is a deep state around any center of power. And a center of power can be the man of a house. Okay, but I'll come back to that a little later. The Kumekucha deep state hates it when I do things which make me look bad, like what I'm about to do. So here goes. Even I, Kumekucha Chris, when this news broke, I had to scramble around to remind myself who Francis Kimemia really is. What the name did was to set off alarm bells on my mind. Tee, 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 tee. But I was not sure what the alarm bells were all about. So I had to go back and remind myself who this man really is. And I now want us to do this together, because it is critical before we analyze the remarks he made on Citizen TV that have caused quite a stir. And in my opinion, Governor Kimemia ended up saying much more than he would have intended to say. Oh yes. Francis Kimemia, at one point during the Kibaki administration, was secretary to the cabinet. What does a secretary to the cabinet do? Forget the official staff. Let us describe his office, or rather what he does, in a language we can all understand. This is the man who takes instructions from the President of the Republic of Kenya and communicates those instructions to others within the cabinet and outside the cabinet. Folks, Deputy President Kando, this is the man who is always joined to a president at the hip and indeed at the head. Francis Kimemia was also a member of the internal security docket. Very sensitive docket. From the last few months of the Moi administration in 2002, actually 1st January 2002 to 1st January 2012, in the last few months of the Kibaki administration. He left on 1st January 2012, which was just 3 months before President Kibaki handed over the sword of authority to Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. My, oh my, is this man qualified to talk about the deep state? Or is he not? Now, just a quick one before we proceed. The deep state operation to raid the standard offices during the Kibaki administration unfolded when Bwana Kimemia was a member of the inner circle in the internal security docket. I think that is enough information to declare that if there's anybody in Kenya today who can discuss the Kenyan deep state from the Moi days to the Kibaki days, to the Uhuru days, if there's anybody very qualified, overqualified to discuss that subject, then it is Bwana Francis Kimemia. He knows a lot. Now, of course, I'm very much aware of the fact that many Kenyans, in fact, a vast majority, do not believe a deep state exists. Many others believe a deep state is nothing too serious. After all, these very naive Kenyans tell themselves, if it is not in our constitution, it is not important. It is irrelevant. Zile stories zingine si za ukweli, za Bwana Kumekucha Chris. Well, Bwana Kimemia in his response about the deep state said something very interesting. After confirming that this thing exists, he added the following words: it could be deeper than deep. It could be deeper than deep. Ay. Now, first of all, in my opinion, I believe Bwana Kimemia, if he was taken back in time, would never repeat the words he uttered at that Citizen TV interview early in the morning. Those of us who are students of human nature know very well that somebody can say much more than they intended to say in certain situations. For example, in this interview, maybe there was a previous question, which he fielded, or maybe there's something he said previously, maybe even off camera before the show started, which caused the other people in the interview to treat him lightly, maybe to dismiss him. Humans don't like to be dismissed, or taken lightly. Do you? And so when he was asked this question, something at the back of his mind may have said, onyesha hawa watu wewe ni nani. Show these people that they know nothing. And so, akatapika maneno. Alafu he came back to his senses. Aka-apply emergency brakes haraka. And he said something to the effect, those are issues we cannot discuss here. But the lid had already been lifted. The beans had already been spilled. Maziwa ilikuwa imemwagika kwa barabara. You can't pick it up. You can't collect that milk and put it back in the packet. Point of no return. I would not be surprised. I don't have any such information. But I would not be surprised if after this show, Bwana Kimemia got a few calls. What were you thinking? Hii ni nini ulisema kwa TV? Were you high on something? Now, why would people be angry? Because the deep state prefers to remain invisible. The deep state loves those who say this thing does not exist. This is just people's imagination. Indeed, they love it so much that anybody with any influence who dismisses the existence of the deep state, they can easily do an M-Pesa to that person. That is how serious it is. Now, Bwana Kimemia said something else that I have said on this channel, and people have dismissed me, laughed at me. He said that the influence in Kenya of foreign powers, foreign governments in our affairs and in our elections is very strong. Yep. Let me break that down even further. What it means is that if you're a strong presidential candidate And powerful Western powers do not want you to ascend to the presidency. To quote Bwana Kimemia's words, you would be naive to think you can win a presidential election. Now, I sense I need to remind you, this is not an ODM sycophant. This is not the Secretary General of ODM, Edwin Sifuna, speaking. This is not Junet Mohammed speaking. This is not Oscar Sudi speaking from Eldoret. No, this is Francis Kimemia. A man who before this happened was not in the radar of any important political analyst in the country called Kenya. Huyo ni ule governor Nyandarua, sijui anaitwa Kimemia, sijui nani. Ni John, ni Francis, sijui. Ni ule governor wa Nyandarua. Irrelevant. Now, Bwana Kimemia vied for the governorship of Nyandarua and won it against the incumbent then. Yeah. And there's something I cannot say on this channel. Yeah. Concerning that, which of course I reveal in my latest weekly intelligence briefings, number 67. Make sure you catch it. Now, in a previous video on this channel, I described what a deep state is in great detail. And I said that this is a network of individuals, most of whom do not hold any official office. Yeah. And some who hold official offices, who are very influential in a country. And I gave the example of a family story, yeah, where there was what can be described as a deep state in operation. And the powerful person in that family, yeah, the head of that family, had no idea what was happening. And yet the deep state was at work. Now, that example was deliberate because, as you may have guessed it, a deep state many times can even do things without the knowledge of the center of power, the head of state. Oh yes. Let me give you the perfect example of that from right here in Kenya. But of course we must remember, always remember, that the deep state is not an invention or a preserve of the country called Kenya. Deep states exist all over the world. Sometime in 1975, a man called Josiah Mwangi Kariuki, who was then the vocal, controversial legislator for Nyandarua North, realized that the deep state were after him. And he was very scared because he knew what the deep state were capable of. And J.M. Kariuki was very close to President Jomo Kenyatta. He had been Jomo Kenyatta's very first personal assistant in 1963. And so he decided the only way to end these manenos was to speak to the President of the Republic of Kenya in person, yeah, privately. And so he made a very determined effort, a persistent effort to see Jomo. The powerful deep state ensured that he never got an audience with the President of the Republic of Kenya. But James did not give up. He tried again and again and again until the 2nd of March arrived and he was assassinated. This is perhaps the most compelling evidence that the intelligence community in Kenya was not involved in the J.M. Kariuki assassination. And in any case, that operation was so shoddy. It was not an efficiently done thing. Yeah, because the intelligence community, when they do things, they cover all their bases. Which tells you that the deep state can do things sometimes with the state machinery and at other times without the state machinery. Now I can hear a very knowledgeable member of this channel say to me, Chris, What about the time when J.M. Kariuki was taken to the special branch offices, at that time in a place called Kingsway House, and interrogated there? And we even have a former intelligence officer who told us about this incident. How can you tell us they were not involved? How can you tell us the intelligence community was not involved? Okay, good question. Yes, we have irrefutable evidence that shortly before he passed on, J.M. Kariuki was taken to the headquarters of the intelligence community at that time, the special branch offices, which were along Kingsway House, University Way in Nairobi. But note the following. He was taken there by a man called Ben Gedhi, who at the time headed the GSU, but was also a member of the deep state, unofficially. And Gedhi was so powerful that he could walk into Kingsway House. He could walk into the intelligence community offices. But also take careful note of the other person who was there interrogating J.M. Kariuki, a man called Wanyoike, who was a former Kanu youth winger, who had been included in the presidential guard by Jomo Kenyatta, because Jomo Kenyatta trusted him. This man was not a professional. He was not trained. He never went to school, but he was close to Jomo Kenyatta. And he was there interrogating J.M. Kariuki. Bottom line, these guys were just using the office of somebody else. It had nothing to do with the intelligence community. The intelligence community came in much later, after the fact, to clean up, to do some damage control. Because what these people had done, what the deep state had done, had now become a threat to the security of the state. It had become a threat to the presidency of Jomo Kenyatta. The mess they caused. Now let us come back to the present. People like Musalia Mudavadi and many others, including the Catholic bishops, have come out and said that this current war between the president and his deputy is very dangerous for the country. But they have not elaborated, especially Musalia Mudavadi. He has not told us in great detail what he means. He has not broken it down. Well, let me break it down for you, and you're going to be shocked to your bones. One of the main reasons why it is so dangerous is because currently in Kenya, we have two, not one, two deep states. One is surrounding the center of power, that is the President of the Republic of Kenya, and the other one is surrounding Deputy President William Samoei Ruto. When you really think about it, what can be more dangerous than that? Because a deep state does not have to use state machinery, as I've illustrated previously in this very video. A deep state operates because of the knowledge they have, the insider knowledge of the system that they have, and their closeness to a certain center of power. And in this case, the deep state of Deputy President William Samoei Ruto is of course nowhere near as powerful, does not have access to state machinery like the deep state of the president. However, they still have enough influence. They know people. There are so many people all over the place who support the deputy president in secret. And therefore, the deputy president's deep state can be lethal. Never underestimate it. In my latest weekly intelligence briefing number 67, I don't want to say moto kama basi ya makaa, because I believe it is hotter. In that WAB, I describe past operations in Kenya of the deep state. Make sure you don't miss it. Just use the email address you see on your screens right now. Send a blank email. You'll receive an automated email response on how you can join WAB immediately. Get all the past issues, including the latest, number 67. Go for it. I highly recommend it. that WIB concludes this video in the public domain with highly sensitive information I cannot discuss here. Mungu saidia Kenya. Almighty God, remember the country Kenya. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.